Hey everybody, it's Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of your Break It Down show with the badass rock and roll of an episode. The Cold Stairs is a band. It's a two-piece band with a guy named Chris Tapp. He runs the front end of things, plays the guitar, does a lot of the booking, and it just is a fascinating dude. If you're familiar with the Cold Stairs, I don't need to tell you anything else. If you're not, stop what you're doing, look up the Cold Stairs on Spotify and get into it. Look, they're part rock and roll, they're part blues, they're part gospel. I mean, these guys are traditional, what you think of American good old hardcore rock and roll, and I think Chris is just a force. One of the things he figured out was nobody could book his band better than him, and so he invented a professional booker, who was actually just him, and he went out and just said, hey, the Cold Stairs are coming. If you hurry up, you can book them for your club. They'll do it for this price. Let me know if you're interested. Goodbye. And then the person would call back, yes, how about the Cold Stairs? Doesn't even know the Cold Stairs were, but he created a sense of urgency. This guy is not a one-man band because there's two guys, but Chris is the force behind the band that really takes it over the top, and I know you're going to love hearing from him, and you're going to love their music. If you like that kind of thing at all, you're going to love it. You're going to love this dude because of how hard he works, and I got to also do a hat tip over to Brett Hutchings, who turned us on to the Cold Stairs and introduced us to Chris. I love it. I love it. The show creates these opportunities for us to support bands that are out there on the road making things happen. I love that people who are part of the show in terms of audience and friends, that, hey, let's go do this. Let's go get this guy. This is incredible. You're going to love it. And the more I do this, the more it continues to enrich souls and make lives better. So definitely I'm super excited about this episode today. We have, if you go to Facebook and you go to the Break It Down show page, we have our shirts. We're running a new series of shirts. That's the Spy series shirt and also the Soundwave shirt. You can go there and buy those. A lot of you have asked about it. There they are. Facebook, go get them. That's a great way to support the show. That money, again, just like the PayPal thing, goes right back into the show. So I reinvest all of that money right back into the show. In terms of the PayPal thing, if you go to breakitdownshow.com, look at the top of the page, first thing you're going to see basically is the PayPal link. Go there, put in a monthly amount, whatever it's going to be, $1, $5, heck, $25. There's all kinds of things you're probably subscribed to that you don't use. Cancel that and divert that money over to here, and you know I'm going to work hard for it. All right, so enough about that, enough pushing those things. Let me push one more thing at you. Save the Brave, savethebrave.org. Here's what I'm going to say to you. Even if you aren't into the Save the Brave thing, if you're an adult and you're not doing some kind of charity, then get to doing some kind of charity. We'll put you to work at Save the Brave, but go pick the thing that you love and that there's a charity for, and go support that charity. You don't have to start a new charity. Just go find one that exists that already does your thing and go and put your time and effort into that. Okay, one last thing to say to you, and that's here comes Chris Tapp.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Amy.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Chris Tapp, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Technology tried to fuck us, but it didn't.
Sure.
We beat them this time.
Couldn't win, man. It could not win.
That's right.
It tried, though.
Yeah, well, the show must go on and all of those kind of things. Hey, Chris, thanks for coming on the show, man. I've had so many people say, holy shit, how'd you get Chris Tapp on the show? So you should know that people are out there and they're moved by what you do. I suppose you know that, but I figured it's always good to let someone know that they're doing it and it's working.
I'm surprised by it every single day still. I'm very thankful and happy to be with you, Pete.
Hey, yeah, man. Thanks for doing it. We have a lot of musicians on the show. I mean, super well-known musicians who work for super well-known people. And it's always incredible to get a chance to hear how you all approach this problem. And I guess the first question I would have for you, and I know you've been asked this, but why the fuck, I'm trying not to swear so much now. Why the heck would it just be two of you? Like, why do a twosome instead of even just a threesome? It's always incredible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many incredible threesomes are there? The Police, Rush, I mean, on and on. Why a twosome?
All my favorite bands are 3-piece and 4-piece. There's no 2-piece bands I like. I'll try to make a long story short. We were playing in a band that was a 4-piece prior to this, and we had some showcase for some record labels, and they all fell through, and we had been working really hard. Brian and I had been working really hard for probably about 4 or 5 years. And so when all that stuff fell through, we just said the heck with it. My daughter had just been born, and I was like, we were done. We weren't going to play anymore. And then not too long, about 3 or 4 months went by, and we just got together and had a couple beers and played. And then we got suckered into opening for somebody. And I was so adamant that we were not going to be a band that I said, okay, I'll do the gig, but we're not going to bring a bass player. We're not going to do anything else. It's just going to be you and I, just as my way to kind of solidify that I wasn't coming out of retirement. But I was also adamant about it sounding good. So I figured out a way to make the bass incorporated into the rig. And then when we played the show that night, it just kind of snowballed from there. It took off. So the thing that we really tried hard, for about 5 years never happened. And the thing that we were trying not to do is the thing that took off, which is just a big lesson in life in general, right?
It is a big lesson. I mean, you look at all the things that you have to do to get, look, even just a blue check by the band's name is in music. I mean, that's impossible just to do that. Yeah. And not that that's like the end all be all, but it's like being an actor. We talked to a lot of actors here, and I always have to qualify the actor, like, oh, they're an actor or they're a screenwriter. And like, but no fooling, like, they do this. This is what they do. They get signed to do things. You get paid to play music. People buy your records. You've built an audience. It's already impossible. If it's going to be a 2-person band, then okay. But it makes it. Do you enjoy the challenge of just the limitations of only having 2 of you? And will you stick to that when you're allowed to go back out on the road, or will you just hire a bass player to go out and gig with you guys and help cover down?
Yeah, no, we've always toured and played shows as a 2-piece. And for those people that have seen us live, it doesn't sound like 2 pieces, because the rig that I built to bring the sound alive really is more of a, we have the gear of 4 people, even though it's 2. So there's 3 different amp setups. There's 2 guitar amps, and then there's a bass setup, and it really is more like a 4-piece band. So we don't need anybody else. It would be really nice. The thing about it is that I succumb to my influences a lot, in the fact that if I was listening to a Chicago record one day, I might come in and just decide I'm going to have a 10-piece band. And, I'm very on a whim kind of guy sometimes. And keeping it 2-piece keeps me in a lane and a frame of mind to write for 2 pieces. Yeah. And I don't always stick by that. In the studio, I play bass, I play mandolin, play or whatever. So we get outside of that, but live, I think we'll always keep it a 2-piece. I always got aggravated, and I hate to throw anybody on the bus, but it's like the Black Keys, like I really like them. They came out around the time that we did, a little bit before us when we first started doing this. And I really liked the early stuff. And then it was like, oh, they got other guys in the band and the sound changed. And I just don't want to do that. I'd much rather be looked at like AC/DC or Black Sabbath, that has a catalog that stays true to what it started as. And we do I have the acoustic stuff that we do that allows me to step outside of the rock stuff and focus more on singer-songwriter stuff or whatever else. So I don't see it as anything will ever change. And I do enjoy playing all the instruments other than the drums in the studio. Sometimes it's hard to relay what you want done to somebody else. We've had some great bass players come in and play, and they're probably better bass players than myself. But it's when I know what I want on a part, it's hard to relay that sometimes to somebody else when you can just do it yourself.
You're a rock and roll band, but you're also got blues, and there's a little bit of country in there and everything else. So you really can move around through several genres pretty comfortably and still sound like the Cold Stairs, and not sound like the Cold Stairs do a country album.
Yeah, right. I hope so. I hope that's the way it's conveyed. I think that I honestly love country music, old country music, and I honestly love gospel and blues and things that we do where we sample into different genres. It's heartfelt. I love that, and So I think as a band, as long as you keep it real, we're not going to do a hip hop record. I've never been, so it's not a super big influence on me. We're not going to do a classical record. It's not, so as long as you kind of stay true to yourself and you're doing things that you really, that really mean something to you, I think it works. It may not work for everybody. I mean, it's funny, we have a crowd that really likes the acoustic stuff that I do. We have a crowd that really likes the heavier stuff, but that's because I listen to Bob Dylan and Black Sabbath both. It's,
Right. Yeah.
I like all that kind of stuff.
When you are listening, how often do you go back and listen to your youthful catalog? Not your music, but just like your Bob Dylan, Black Sabbath, all that kind of stuff, AC/DC. How often are you in that old canon of music for you?
Every other day, weekly.
Oh, okay, all the time.
Yeah. I listen to music. I listen to music every time I'm in the car. I listen to music every night. It's when you record and write as much as we do and as much as I do, writing wise, a lot of times, I'm going for a certain thing. I think when, let's say, when Led Zeppelin came along, they were really referencing the early blues guys, but that's all they had to reference. So they really loved those guys, and they were referencing those guys and making music that was derivative from that. But I have those guys plus Led Zeppelin, plus the 80s rock, plus the 90s alternative, plus the grunge scene, all this stuff. So a lot of times when I'm writing, I'll go, well, this kind of feels like a, whatever. It feels like a Bad Company song. What if I was writing that, how would I proceed to record it? I don't want to have a really fuzzy guitar on a Bad Company type thing. So I'm a lot of times, I know some people don't like to say this, but I find it, I'm very honest about it. It's part of what I do is referencing the things that I love. I'm always trying to I'd love to make something that sounded as good as Black Dog, that sounds to me. And I don't think you can get away from that in 2021. I mean, there's so many things that's already been done. So I I go back and listen to stuff all the time.
Yeah. Brad has said, Brad Hutchings for everybody, and Brad, but Brad has said, a bunch of people have said, you guys sound like a gigantic band. If there were four of you up there, would they say that about the band? Or do you think this is primarily because you guys are making the noise of 4 to 6 to 10 people?
It never hurts to underestimate, have somebody come in and underestimate. Like when we did some shows with Rival Sons, the Rival Sons fans know what Rival Sons sound like, and it's going to be big. It's going to be great sounding show. And when they see just two guys get up, the expectation is not as high. So if we do come out slamming, maybe it's the legend grows a little bit. I don't know. But I will say that there is no sound difference when there's four of us on stage versus the two of us, the way that I have things set up. It's exactly the same. So we've had other guys sit in with us, and I mean I think of our band on a template as AC/DC. So I have an amp that's set up a certain way, maybe that Malcolm would have it, an amp that's set up as Angus, and then a bass. So those players and those amps come in and out during the set, during a song, multiple times. So it always feels like you have multiple personalities on stage, even though it's Brian and I. And I think that as a listener, and I'm trying not to sound, like I've figured out the world. I'm just trying to make my song sound good. But I think as a listener, maybe that's what people like about us, and it's interesting to us. It never gets old for somebody to come. We had people come up and say, well, you got a sequencer going on, or you've got somebody behind the stage, or you're playing the tracks. And we honestly have never done anything like that. But it's always, to take it as a big compliment. Somebody comes up and says how big we sound live.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, any band wants to hear that they sound like they're blowing the back doors off the place. But that's for sure a compliment all the time.
Yeah.
When you think about your setup and your system and your amp approach and all these things. And I don't want to get too tech nerdy, although that's going to break some people's hearts. But how much are you playing your setup versus playing your song, or writing for your setup as opposed to writing the song for that? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's a guitar, there's a piano. That's how I write my songs. But are you also thinking, this is when I'm going to bring in this amp setup, or, this pedal? Because you are doing so much with your setup. It has to be part of how you think about this.
It is. I have to think the first two records were really thought out as how are we going to play this live? I don't want to write a great song and then us not be able to perform it live.
Right.
So there is always that aspect when I'm writing. But the last two records, Ways, and then our new album that will be coming out pretty soon, Heavy Shoes, I wrote both of those just going, okay, I'm going to do whatever treatment in the studio that is needed for the song, whether it's doubling vocals or maybe like I've done guitar solos. I didn't do that the first couple of records. I've been doing guitar solos, and I can't do those live. As soon as I start playing a solo, the music drops out. So we have to reconfigure those songs live. Having said that, we've always done covers of, we've done a few covers of bands that we love and songs that we love, like say Whipping Post. The Whipping Post is done by Allman Brothers, 6 or 7 guys on stage. Obviously, we have to recalibrate that song for us to play it. And I think I've kind of taken the same approach to our songs on the record. How can we take this song that we've written and reconfigure it where it has a different identity, but the same identity when you hear it live? So a lot of times it's a little meaner live, meaner that it doesn't have some of the sprinkles on top of it. But I think our fans like that, and it doesn't bother me. I think we've always, in other bands, have been trying to live up live to what the album would sound like. And in this particular band, we had such notoriety for sounding so big. We've always been trying to make the record sound as good as we do live. So we just don't even think about it anymore. We just make the best record we can, and then we figure out a way to play them all live. The fans come, and then they hear a song a little bit different in a different way. I think they enjoy that. So far, that's how we're approaching it.
I've not seen you play the harmonica. Do you bring that in?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I did.
The reason
man.
why I ask is it's an obvious way to solo, and continue to play rhythm. And I'm sure I could not handle that, but I'm sure you could handle that. And then do you ever worry about getting a little bit too corny with this? And maybe I'm not talking cymbals between the knees kind of corny, but do you worry that you get too tech focused as opposed to just being just a rock and roll band?
No.
And maybe you would put cymbals between your knees. I don't want to take that from you.
No, I've seen guys do that, and that's great. It's not my thing. We have always we have always had the mantra to never do anything live that we wouldn't be embarrassed of 10 years later. There's a lot of the bands that we liked in the 80s when we were little kids, you look fairly embarrassing now. So we try not to embarrass ourselves. Certain guys can do that and get away with it, but I don't ever worry about that because we are really, really cut to the bone simple. Like, even though I have quite a bit going on, we have a lot of stuff that we bring in on stage. We keep it really, if we were a drink, it'd be more whiskey than Long Island iced tea. There's not a whole lot of, complexity to what we do. And I try not to make the songs very complex. We have some fun times where we do some jam stuff, and we can be a little bit of, enjoy ourselves in the songs, but I'm trying not to be too prog rock or too overthought on anything, and just make it really to the point and heartfelt what we're doing.
I would even say you guys, as a two-piece, like the White Stripes, you guys aren't even whiskey neat. You're just whiskey. Just slide that bottle over you.
Yeah.
But I love that attitude. And obviously, at least from my point of view, you guys have a lot of White Stripe influence. You've definitely, seen and heard their stuff. Do you feel competitive at all? Like that, or like their appear? Like I know that you guys rock as hard as Jack White and whoever else plays behind him does, but do you see that as sort of like a gold standard that you're meeting? I think you guys are every bit the band that White Stripes were, but do you think that?
No, I don't think that way for a couple of reasons. First of all, I am absolutely in awe of Jack White, Dan Auerbach's songwriting. You know, I'm at the whole at my center. I'm a songwriter, and you know, it's not a competitive thing to me at all. I look at both of those guys as amazing songwriters, but I've never once looked at them as contemporaries to what we do, because it's not the same at all. I love what they do, both of them live, but I never liked those records played live because they didn't have a bass. They didn't have the bottom end, and I always missed that. And I thought it was really, really cool, but kind of it just didn't. It's not what I love. You know, I'd much rather listen to a Black Crowes record or the Cult or the Cure or something that has to have bottom end in it for me to really love it. So I never felt like we were competing with those bands. I'm sure a lot of other people think that, and looked at it. And I've had people say, well, like we have a song in the new Cyberpunk video game, and I saw some comments that, yeah, they kind of sound like the Black Keys. And I don't think that they would say that if we were 5 people. They say that because we're 2 people, because I don't think that we really sound like that. Having said that, the Black Keys, the White Stripes, really any band that I'll say that most bands that I listen to, we're all influenced by the same thing. Like I said earlier, it's not 1970. If it was 70, Hendrix is listening to something completely different than maybe, the Byrds are or whoever. But right now, if you play guitar music, we all know Zeppelin. We all know Hendrix. We all know Black Sabbath. And I'm a big, I am an absolute blues fanatic in the fact that I love to listen to it and I adore it. And, so we're all pulling from that same well. So I think that's where the competition comes from, or the thought of that would come from, but we don't. There is no music or there's not any other band that we feel like we're in a competition with that we feel that we're as good as or that we're better than. To me, it's art, and it's completely. I mean, I love Iggy Pop. I love Bob Dylan. My dad would probably say that they're both horrible. So I don't look at it like that. But
let me say this from a different way, because I don't want to mean like competitive, like you're trying to be better than, but do you belong on the same field as, like if the White Stripes were out there, like, we want to have bands like us come out and play in a festival, would you feel like, yeah, we can totally handle like playing at their level? Are you peers in terms of what you guys do,
without sounding arrogant, but with sounding confident? We feel comfortable playing in front of anybody.
Okay.
I mean, I started seeing concerts when I was 13 years old. One of the best live bands I've ever seen is Rival Sons. And, we played with them, and I felt like we held our own, and, we had a lot of people had a lot of great comments that night and other nights that we played. So I think that has always been good for us, that we feel confident. We make mistakes like everybody else does, and everybody has great nights and bad nights. But I wouldn't be nervous opening for anybody or playing with anybody at any time, anywhere. So you're always going to get people that love the opening band more than the closer. That's just a great thing about music, So
you guys would you say that you have Appalachian roots? I mean, Kentucky and Tennessee, yes, but do you feel like you guys pull from that, Songbook of America kind of sound, or would you say you're more blues based, or can you even describe that?
Well, I was born in Barberville, Kentucky, which is over by Harlan and Hazard and all those areas. And then the area that I grew up in was down the road from John Prine and the Everly Brothers and Chris Knight. And that is where the songwriting and maybe the folky Appalachian or the country influence, those influences come from. Okay. It's really difficult for me to get behind somebody and like somebody that doesn't feel. I'm trying to think of how to explain it, but I feel like I'm I have a clear conscience on playing that kind of music because that's where I come from.
Right.
You know, if I was doing a like an acid jazz trip hop thing that was really European influenced, and then you heard my voice, you know, it's not saying that I couldn't be influenced by that or love it or try to do that, but I'm proud of where I come from. I think Brian is too. You know, we're a few hours north of Memphis, so we have a blues influence. We're, you know, not too far from Nashville. Like I said, we come from an area where John Mellencamp and John Prine and those people come from. I think it would be silly for me not to try to be a good singer-songwriter. I aspire to write songs like those guys. And then, I mean, we come from an area where there's a lot of roots rock and a lot of that kind of stuff. And so that's where all that comes from. I'm very proud of that. Now, I always think that's the music. That's the music that's, you know, the most valuable to me and the most American, and just it's you know, I don't know, but that's I would say Appalachian more than Nashville or more than you know, we don't like nothing against the people that like the new country and the bro country stuff, but I'm a Johnny Cash guy and a Willie Nelson guy, and I like the stuff, the music, the bluegrass, and the stuff that originated from the place that I was born has a deep history of singing about a lot of the things that I sing about. So that's not an accident.
And that's, in a lot of ways, is the people's music. We recently had on, I don't know if you ever heard of Gangsta Grass, but they combine bluegrass and rap. And it's a wonderful mix. And you think about what those kind of songs are about, whether it's rap or bluegrass, and what they're singing, you know, that again, it's the people's music. And it's so rich for them that they can branch in a couple different directions. And it's neat to be able to bring that kind of part of what America is and continue to play that, you know, Buddy Holly and the Crickets, there aren't that many Crickets, you know, it was two, maybe three guys tops, you know, but that's what I think about Johnny Cash. I mean, he only needed a microphone and a guitar. That's all he needed. And then he could kill it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the simplicity of it lends itself to great songwriting. If your songwriting is not good, then, you know, I mean, you can go see Fish or somebody, or Dave Matthews, somebody with a big band, and the songs don't have to be great. Not that they're not.
Yeah,
right. But you can really enjoy the atmosphere and the music and the production and whatever else. When you strip it all down, you better have good songs. You better have good lyrics, or else you're going to get torn apart. And the good thing about bands like Gangsta Grass, the band you were talking about, some of the other bands that are hybrids that are mixing these things, it's so good because what you have is you have somebody that likes rap or that listens to that, or maybe some kids that listen to that. And then they hear that and they associate with that, but then it opens them up. Maybe they listen to some new stuff from the bluegrass side of things, which is great, and vice versa. So I always admire that and love that in other bands. I like that in a lot of the bands I listen to. As far as we go, and as far as this band goes, I'm trying to stay as close to the root of the tree as I can. You know, because I feel like I'm already, you know, I take aspects of a song by, you know, Mississippi John Hurt or some old gospel stuff, and then we're playing guitar sounds that sound like Sabbath or whatever else. So I'm already taking a little bit of you know, I'm stretching a little bit, putting those things together. So that's about as far as I want to take it.
Yeah, well, you're already stretching it a long way with just being two people. I want to ask you this, because you're so established in how you do things and your sound, how open are you to outside production to keep you guys fresh? Because we do these crazy things called album fights here on the show, right? And we'll take two tracked albums. So like up soon, we're going to have Prince's Purple Rain against Led Zeppelin 2. They both have 9 tracks. Yeah. Track 1 fights track 1 for round 1, and then you score it like a boxing match, right? And crazy things happen when you do this. Like when you ease up and change gears, or you put an instrumental in and you go against some crazy song. Yeah, you know, it's like it changes how we think about records. One of the things we've learned along the way is that when an artist does too much of their own decision making, they get a little self-indulgent. And maybe that's the plan for that record.
Yeah.
But you could hear the indulgence and the quality, I think, goes down beyond what the person can do themselves because they're accountable to themselves. Stevie Wonder has done this. He's done incredible things, mind-blowing things. But if he doesn't have someone in there to say, let's try this, he doesn't. And he goes with this genius and it's either good enough or it's not. And sometimes it's just not.
Yeah. I think the way that I would answer that question is I'm not opposed to it. I think we always search for that early on. So when we first started playing and we first started actually recording, our thought was, if I can get, we get a good producer in here that we both admire, then, and we'll work hard, then he'll produce a record for us that's going to be great, right? He's going to push me to do the best vocal I can. And what we found out when we first started working with a few people, I would come out of the vocal booth or out of a guitar part and say, and I would be unsure, and they would say, oh, that's great. I want you to tell me to sing it more like Henry Rollins or more like whoever, and we didn't get a lot of feedback because we had already been working so hard for so long that we came across as we knew what we were doing when I'm not for sure how, we've learned a lot over the last 10 years of playing and recording. And I'm confident, we're both confident, and we're now recording in our own studios a lot of the time and doing these things. And I've always produced it. Brian has always produced stuff with me, and we've always done everything ourselves. When we go into the studio with somebody like Mark Needham, who we did on this new record, I don't know. It's a weird question because we've never worked with somebody like, some of the big producers. The guys that we work with, they always go, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Try not do another one if you want, but that sounds good, or we got it, or that. I've never gotten that. I guess we've always wanted that. We've always wanted somebody to go, hey man, just imagine like, you just got out of a car crash and these are the last lyrics you're going to sing. What are you trying to say? We've never had anybody to do that. But part of the reason why we've done it ourselves this way was because we sit there and we're in a small town in Indiana or Western Kentucky at the time. And I felt like, hey, I'm a good songwriter. I feel like I think I write some songs as good as the people that I admire. And we felt like once we started playing, hey, I feel like we could play, with some other bands and be respectable. So how do we get heard? Which early on, maybe this will be a book someday, but early on meant me putting on a UPS uniform and trying to deliver something to Warner Brothers in Nashville. It meant, us calling clubs and making fake names for ourselves to try to sound like we were a booking agent, like we had a booking agent so we could get the gig. We did whatever it took. And I specifically did whatever it took to get us noticed because I believed in it and Brian believed in it too. And, so we learned to do all these things ourselves without having somebody else in there. We just signed a new record deal. This record we produced, we did it all ourselves. I would love to have Steve Albini or somebody come in and say, I'd love to make a record with you guys. And the acoustic stuff that I do, I might be working with Malcolm Burns on some of that coming up. So I'd love to have somebody else's input. But so far we haven't, just because we've ended up doing it all ourselves.
So you got to remind me, I'm going to introduce you to Wes Maybe. He's one of those guys. He works with all kinds of bands in London, and in normal times, he's over here quite a bit working, but he's worked with UB40 and a bunch of other bands. And he has that thing. And maybe you guys don't work together, but I'd love to see what you guys come up with. He just has that band whisperer sense, in him. So either way, we'll set that up later on. The other thing I wanted to ask about is the business side of this. And you alluded to the way you guys booked yourself. And I'll just cut this short because a lot of people can listen to this in other shows. Basically, these guys invented their own booking agent who was themselves. You just give yourself like a Pete at Cold Stairs, and then he emails, hey, my band can do this. They can bring this many people in. What night do you want to book them? And they're like, oh, well, Pete must be a very well-known booker. Okay. And they would book the band and everything. But I mean, that is what you have to do. There's there's a producer who started taking out small billboards all around Hollywood and LA with these things saying like, so-and-so doesn't pay their child support with the phone number. And they would, but it wasn't a real thing. It was just to get people's attention. And so they would dial the number and he would use that. And then he worked himself into, like, he's produced for Rihanna. I'm always, so he like used, this false flag approach that you guys use to do it. So good on you for figuring that out. I guess, what are some of the other things? I mean, getting a song for a video game. Joe Budden has done that. Fujiya Miyagi has done it for TV shows and everything. And these are bands that people love, but they don't have that massive, explosive, 10 million fan kind of base, but they're getting paid good money because their music is good enough to sit in another creative space and add to it.
Yeah. That is that's a tough, it's a tough way to explain how some of that stuff happened, other than, we got a sync early on for Animal Kingdom on TNT. Was working with a publisher in Nashville, and landed that, and I saw that it could happen, and I'm the same way. A lot of times I've watched TV shows or movies and gone, "What's that song? I really like that," and then who's that band? And it's a band I hadn't heard of, and I discover and just fall in love with it. So the thing about that is, if you have a director or a music supervisor or somebody else, a lot of times, they're no different than us. If they're creating something, they'd love to have something unique in there, and the sync fee to get Back in Black may be $1 million, but there may be a band that has that kind of feel and tone that could relay that same message in that scene that's maybe not heard of, that they can find. So for a band like us that's not huge, it's a huge opportunity. I mean, the Cyberpunk thing, it had 15 million, 20 million streams of our song, right away. And most people are on there looking at the video game, and the music's in the background. It's not like that means that we're going to have 15 million new fans, but it's an amazing advertisement that you can't pay for. To get paid for that, is amazing. But it requires a lot of hustle and a lot of, as far as that happening, making that happen. I just decided 3 or 4 years ago that it was going to happen, and I saw it in my head happening, and I convinced myself it was going to happen. And I wrote music. I write a lot, work a lot, I record a lot, and I'm always writing things that I feel like, are true to what I do. And sometimes they fit in those situations. So, man, it's incredibly difficult to get, Yellowstone is one of my favorite shows on television. I'm an old Westerns guy. I just love that show. And we have a guy that's a friend of mine that actually knows a music supervisor, and I'd love to get a song on that show. I'm determined to get a song on that show, and we've gotten really close a couple of times. So when I write something acoustic and I feel like it works towards that, then I pitch it over there and we try. But all that stuff, man, requires a lot of hustle. I get other musicians and friends all the time that go, "Hey man, how'd you get in that playlist?" Or, "Hey man, how did you get your song, that ESPN commercial?" Well, I'll tell you how I did it. I spent about 20,000 hours from the time I was, for the last 10 years. And a lot of days that I got up at 7 o'clock in the morning, dropped my kid off at school, and worked 16 or 18 hours until I got it right. If there's a shortcut, man, I haven't found it. I've worked my ass off to get anything that we've accomplished. And we have been surrounded by great people that love the band and have tried to help, but there's nobody's going to do it for you. So.
No, I'm a big believer in outworking your problem and
Absolutely.
Outworking your peers. When they're trying to scratch their head, and I'm like, okay, you keep scratching. I'm gonna go put this show out and keep going. And you got to meet people. Like when you talk about the music directors, the people in charge of those choices, you can't meet enough of those people.
You can't meet them, period.
Oh,
you
that's
can't
true, too.
you can't get their information. I used to have people that were close to me that knew how hard I was working at music, and they would say, "Chris, what can I do to help you?" And I would say, "Find me the musical director of Deadwood. Give me his phone number or his email address." I'll give you $1,000. Go find it for me, because all I want to do is I want to find out what his favorite liquor is, and I want to send him a case of it. And I want to tell him that I love the show and here's my music, and I'd love to be a part of it. I mean, you have to be creative and keep thinking about that things, but you can't reach those people. So you have a publisher, you write your songs, you get them to the publisher, and then if they get contacted and those opportunities come about, then you might have a shot at it. But the hardest part of any of that is getting connected to those people. If you know, and then I guess if your best friend was a musical director on, some hit show, then they wouldn't want to use your songs for nepotism. So I don't know, it's like, I don't know how it works,
Yeah. But I mean, that is one of the ways that a band can make money. I don't know what one song on a show equals for you guys, and I'm not asking that, but that's got to help, when you go to make the next album. Or when the video game shows up or whatever it's going to be, just, that check that's got 5 to 6 numbers on it is, that's changing the game for you. And the more often you can get that done, the better, because it's really, there are so many charts. It's not about charting anymore. You can chart all you want, and it doesn't mean that you've made any damn money, especially if people are listening on Spotify where they pay you a 10,000th of a cent every time someone spins your song, so you've got to find these other ways to get your music out there. And discovery, I'm in the same business. Discovery, I've tried all the things you have to try, and what I finally kind of realized is that if you can't satisfy the algorithm, it will never suggest you. You are undiscoverable. They won't let you be discovered, and so you have to figure out how to whoop that algorithm, and whether it's externally or internally. Yeah,
it's very difficult. You have a number of people that you've never heard their name of. You've never heard their name, and they make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year recording and making music for, film and television and ads, and you never know them. And you have people that, that are in bands that tour and travel around the world that don't have any of that income coming in, and they rely, solely on touring money, and they don't, they probably don't make minimum wage a year. It's incredibly difficult. You have to, if you want some longevity and you want to stay in the game, you have to figure out multiple income streams, and you have to figure out what it is, what can you still make money doing. And it really changes from year to year. As a musician, we've had to pivot 4 or 5 times. There for a while it was, you can make some money selling vinyl for a while, and now it's film and TV, but maybe that stuff changes eventually too, because if you were a photographer in the 80s, you were doing weddings and you were selling film and you were selling prints. And now you have a digital camera and everybody's a photographer. And how do you make money? So if you want to stay in, you got to figure out a way to do it. I'm not one to, I wish I would, I can't tell you how much I wish it was 1976 and I could start and try to get a record deal and do things then. 'Cause you can make, those guys made a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
But I can either complain about it now or, thing about Spotify, you don't make any money on Spotify, but I have people from Germany, New Zealand, Australia every day that message me and tell me, they tell you the most amazing things. Like somebody's going through something, and tough in their life, or they went through a divorce, or maybe they're returning from service in the military and they've heard something that you've made, it's changed their life. It's like even if we were making $3 a week, to know that you're having that impact. So Spotify does get you out for that,
Yeah. And all of those brands do, but you wouldn't pick Spotify or iTunes as a business partner because they're not really in it to help you, and they can disappear you in a second if they don't like you. You would never even know it,
And they may. Spotify's, doing a lot more podcast stuff. It's nobody, it's, as you know, and anybody that knows it's working hard, nobody's going to nobody's going to help you unless it's beneficial to them, and you can't expect them to. Even, I mean, people may adore you and love you, but if they're trying to make a living, you know, if you're not if you're not adding to that, then it's tough to get them to help.
So when you have all this stuff you have to do, you've got to, manage a band. You've got to write music for the band. You've got to sell your music to people. You've got to meet people, network. I always talk to people like us that are like me, more indie style creators. We don't have a crew of people doing our marketing for us. Yeah, you can hire someone, everything else, but ultimately, it's the two of you wearing all the hats.
Yeah.
And what hat do you want to get rid of desperately? You're like, I would love to have enough money just to get this hat on somebody else's head, because what you should be doing is writing music. I mean, that's the only thing you should be doing, but you don't get to do that because you have to run a business.
I'd like to hand over social media. For one, certain aspects of it I enjoy. I don't do Facebook. I took us off Twitter a couple of years ago, and everybody was like, you're crazy. You got it may be bad, but you've got to, use that to grow your band. Certain things in my career and in this band, not having a manager and being able to say, okay, I'll suffer the consequences of this, but my morality and my, who I am is not going to go along with this. I'm not going to go along with it. And I really don't care if my career suffers for it or not. You can't make those decisions a lot of time with a manager. And so it's been nice to make those. But like I said, on the social media stuff, I do Instagram, and I enjoy that because I have some of my friends on there and I love to see their guitars or maybe the kids or whatever else. But I'd like to hand that off, and I'd like to hand the booking off, I'd like to say these are the weeks that I'm unavailable, or the days. And other than that, I'd love for somebody to book. We're very fortunate. We finally got to a position where we have an agent in the States. We have an agent in Europe now that are handling a lot of that, and it's slowly getting turned over. I don't have to handle that anymore. And so the more stuff that you can take off the plate where I can just write and create, the better. But I've been doing so much of it for so long that even handing it off, sometimes you're a little nervous,
Yeah.
You probably know this too, but every time we've ever hired somebody or looked at working with somebody else, if you've been putting 10 logs in the fire every day, and then you hire somebody to do the same job and they come in, they put 5 logs, you're not going to want to pay them very long or work with them very long. I expect anybody that I work with to work as hard, as I do, if they're getting the same results anyway. And Brian works his ass off. I handle a lot more of the detail stuff than Brian does, but Brian works his ass off too. If I had 2 more people, if we had 2 guys, that just worked on some other stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of the chicken and the egg problem. I can hire someone to do my social media, but it doesn't mean they're any damn good at it. But if they're any damn good at it, I can't afford to hire that person.
Isn't that the thing in everything? You can't get a record deal until you have 50,000 fans and you've had 20 million streams. And you can't have 20 million streams until you've got a record label or somebody that's going to put $20,000 behind it. That's always been the issue with bands of my generation, and you have to learn how to project and believe that what you want to happen is going to happen, and you have to find a way to make it happen. I mean, we've always, when we started out and I was booking, like we had discussed earlier, I had to project that we were already doing great. I give you an example. We were trying to get a gig at, it wasn't the Exit In, it was another gig in Nashville, but let's just say it was Exit In. It was similar to that. I called him and said, hey, we're playing this band, like to send you a package. Okay, send it to me. Send it. No, nobody calls back, whatever else. I call them again. Hey, I sent you this package. Oh, we never got it. Send another. Okay, I'll send another. Send another. We'd love to, I saw on your calendar that Bush is coming in or this band's coming in, whatever. We'd love to open for them. We'll open for free, Okay, we'll get back with you. Nothing back. So what I figured out was I started talking to some people, and I said, well, they work with this booking agency. So eventually I got to where I would call and say, hey, this is Landon Carr. I represent a band called the Cold Stairs. They're pretty busy with some shows, but they are going to be coming through on a Thursday night. I need to see if you have something booked. I'm going to drop the retainer a little bit to get them in that night because I know that their fans are really going to enjoy them with so-and-so. I need you to call me back by 3:00 today, but I've got some other things to close up if you're not interested. And I started getting the calls, and then the thing about that is you're hustling. You're hustling. If you don't come in and kill it after you've hustled, it doesn't matter. It's no good. You can talk all the crap you want to talk. So, then you have to go in. But once you get in, if you go in and you bust your ass and you do a great job, then you're in. But, it's a hustle.
Well, this is the thing, though, right? Like, you guys are good at that. And I've not seen you live. I actually was going to go with Brad, but it just didn't work out. I try not to see a lot of live shows because my ears are all blown up from combat. But I bet, and I'm not going to make you say it because I know you're not the kind of guy to say this. I bet, too, you're like, I dare motherfucker to put us on stage in front of that band because we're going to fucking take the damn money, I mean, bands are competitive like that. So, yeah, I dare you. I dare you to put us on stage with anybody. And you guys love the Black Crowes and you love whoever's going to be AC/DC, but you take that gig and they're going to get a full show. There's no doubt about that.
Every band that is good has a little bit of that in them, and rightfully so. I mean, the Black Crowes opening for ZZ Top. You saw how that went. Chris Robinson had certain expectations of what he wanted to see from his heroes, and he's going to go. I mean, what's the point of going on stage if you're not going to lay it all down and give it all to them anyway? So we have been so fortunate that all the bands that we've played with that are household names, they've all been great. There's one band in particular that had a tour manager that was a real asshole. And we had multiple dates with them. And the first night that we played with them, they were somebody that I had looked up to. So we were very conscious about how we treated the stage. We got off quickly, and we were supposed to play 30 minutes. We played 25. I'm trying to be, because there are people that I look up to, and their tour manager was a complete ass. Jumped on stage the moment that our last note, cymbal crash stopped. He was yelling at me to pull my amps off stage and everything else. And I told Brian, we just about went to blows on the stage, but I told him, I said, tomorrow night we are going to light their ass up. And there was no thought about how loud we were anymore. If they weren't going to turn us up on the PA, I brought another amp in and we turned up louder on stage. And you want to be respectful, especially of your heroes and your peers.
Of course.
But you also can't be, if you get rolled over, man, you're not going to last in this business a minute. So,
yeah. I will say this, and I won't say the person's name, but this is a person in a household name band. And they said when they bring someone out, they expect you to do that, to light the crowd up.
Yeah.
Because and what this person said is there's no level. These are our fans. There's no level they can get to that won't benefit us. Like, we'll just take what they've given us, this great opening, and completely respectful of like what your band would give them, and this is a band everybody would love to open up for. It's like, I want that. I want them to give it. I want them to try to whoop us because it only benefits everybody. Everybody's going to remember them. They're going to remember this great show because we know how to do what we do.
Yeah.
I know only can help.
When we've had bands open for us that we liked and it went up there and tried to destroy it. What's the first thing that I want to do is go, okay, we'll show you how we do it. Because
exactly.
it brings our level, us up, especially, we've played with a lot of great bands. We've had a lot of great bands open up for us.
Right.
And I can see myself in those bands, and I love it. And I love the hustle. I love the hard work. And you got to be they have to be a little bit cocky. I want them to come up there and try to tear it down. And then, but I think that is more on a work ethic. I like that competition, and I like that
Sure.
on a work. Let me see you outwork me, because the music, unless somebody's just trying to copy us or we're trying to copy somebody else, man, you can have, I remember ZZ Top. I forget. I saw a couple bands one time, and everybody's going to have their favorite, and I could see a band that had an off night that I could really love the lyrics or something else connect to it, and the following band can be the best night ever and it not connect with me. So, everybody, it's just like I said, it's not a competition on the music, on the hustle, brother. It is what it is.
For sure. And you're right. Like it's a healthy competition. You want to go out there and, especially if you're hired to work for somebody else, or if you're hiring people to work for you, like you want this crowd to have a great time,
Oh yeah.
You don't want to see someone mail it in. I wanted to ask you, one of the things that I love that Daryl Hall does. I don't know if you've ever seen Live from Daryl's House, but I love that what he takes his songs, his established book, and he brings a band like Johnny Swim in, or the OJs. Anybody can walk through that door. The Bacon Brothers band walks in that door. Mm-hmm. So you must get calls on things like this, where someone like Daryl Hall or Daryl Hall's representative, or whatever, AC/DC's tour manager says, "Hey, we want you to do this." What are some of those moments where you're just like holding the phone, going, "Is this real?" I mean, because you guys have made it, right? Like you are so far up Rock and Roll Mountain, but your heroes are still out there. They're still playing. And sometimes they call you and you're like, oh my God.
Well, twofold. I don't think you ever feel like you've made it. I mean, we don't, we don't, there's been multiple times in our career that we have, kind of looked at each other and we've said, is this the best it gets? And I've always been one to live in the moment, especially after having cancer. I want to look at it and go,
right,
stop, and let's look at this right now, because I want to celebrate tonight. I want to celebrate just making it to this point. We did that when we won the Hard Rock Cafe contest when we first started the Ambassadors Rock thing, and I remember us going, all right. There's multiple times in my career where I have, and Brian and I call it the non-career. We say it's the non-career because there's no, I don't know. I'm never satisfied for sure, but there's been multiple times where we said, okay, I got to hang it up after tonight. I could go home and feel like that the amount of work that I put into this, I got back enough to feel happy with it. But
yeah,
I don't feel like we've made it. I don't know what the threshold is for me to feel like we made it, but I've had a couple of those things, and I don't want to sound arrogant or name drop. I'll give you one that was last year. We worked really hard on the Ways record. I thought it was a damn good record. We'd done it in Memphis. We did it old school. We recorded everything ourselves. We produced it ourselves. We felt like it was a good record. I really sang that one from the gut and the heart, and I wanted that record to do good. And in my head, I just started projecting. I thought, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. And one day I got a message on Instagram from Joe Bonamassa, and it just said, it said, "Hey man, I really like your record. And I hope you guys do well, or I'd love to try to help you someday," or something like that. And man, it really just felt good, because I was a fan of Joe's anyway, and Joe's just such a he's an iconic dude. When the Claptons and those guys are gone from this earth, I mean, Joe's really he's the flame holder for all that. So it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
But I left it at that, and I went to. About 2 or 3 weeks later, I went to bed one night. I kind of had a rough night, and I woke up the next morning, and I wake up to take my kid to school. I look at my phone, and I had like 60 texts, a ton of text or whatever else. I'm like, what in the hell's happened? I thought, well, something crazy's happened or whatever else. And they said, "Did you see what Bonamassa put on his Instagram?" And I thought, he'd either bought an old guitar of mine. I had no idea. But anyway, I got on there, and he had said that we were his favorite musical discovery, and that it's just that's super flattering and just humbling. It also solidifies what you believe in yourself when other people believe it. People that I have a guy that drives 5 or 6 hours to come see us sometimes when we play locally. And after the show, he'll come up and he'll say that, that this really meant a lot to him, this song and this and that. And sometimes to me, that's a lot bigger than having a celebrity that says that, or I don't, it meant if Joe Bonamassa wasn't famous at all, and I had heard him play guitar one night, and the next night he came and said that same thing to me, it would have meant the same thing, because my respect for just hearing him and knowing how great he was, it didn't matter that he was famous. It mattered that he was somebody I respected that gave me that respect back. But yeah, that's a good example of one of those things. We've had a couple of those that I guess the thing it does is it still doesn't help. Like, and I live in we did an EP last year, and I had a song there called My City. Evansville's a tough place, man. I go into GameStop with my kid, and the Cyberpunk posters are everywhere, and it's not like that anybody recognizes me or that says anything, or it's like there are times that you wish you had a little bit of that recognition from people that you went to school with or whatever else. I got friends that are lawyers and they're famous, making a bunch of money or something. I want to say, well, we've worked pretty hard, done pretty well, but even my friends don't cut me any slack. Like,
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
And it just makes you work harder. At the end of the day, I want to make my kids proud. When I'm gone, I want them to say, hey, my dad wrote a bunch of good songs, and they're still around, and you can listen to them, and he had a really good work ethic, and everything else is cake, but we don't get we're not getting any cake and pie yet. So
yeah. Well, let me just say this. I talked to a lot of people that have made it, and when they look back, they're like right around this time, and then after that, it was all pretty much set in motion. So maybe you feel like you haven't made it, but I think that you have. When I see the signs, and I did some prep by talking to some musician friends of mine, very well-known people. And I said, what do you think of this band? They're like, these guys are fantastic. Even if they hadn't heard of you, they look, game recognizes game. They understand what good is. And they all said the same thing. Like, this is an incredible band. Just two guys. Holy shit. Like a lot of this was said back to me. So I know that it's there. And when you talk to me about, just outworking problems, and then there's not a problem that you're not going to lick. You write great albums. I mean, here's Brad's comment, Cole, not that one. Here it is. Waves was a pretty kick-ass record. Never a bad day when I throw it on. You only need so many of those. And then, you will know that you've made it at that point. You're there, though. I mean, you're doing it. You're doing all the things that you're supposed to do. And it's incredible to be able to talk to someone who is in the middle of doing it. You're out there killing dragons. And I love it. Just for the audience in general, look, go support these guys. Here's where you can do it. And if you're from Evansville, any of them, whether it's Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, go support the Cold Stares, damn it. So look, on YouTube, just type in the Cold Stares and spin that stuff and see if it's your style. Just do that, because on the strength of my recommendation. If you want to, you can go to their website, The Cold Stares. This is all pretty, you're going to notice the theme here, just thecoldstares.com. Follow them on Instagram. If you go to Amazon Music and you sign up, by the way, we'll get a little kickback for that, because you always have to sell something, right? But go and listen to this music and kick a little money out when you hear this guy's story, when you see how hard he and Brian are working. This is what you want to support. You want to support bands like this, bands that are approachable, that are out there crushing it, and just get out there and do what you can to help these acts continue to do what they do, because, dude, what you do is incredible. I love it. And it's, you're not just writing some songs. You're writing songs that are making people making their lives better, you know, and you put a lot of passion in it. The lyrics are incredible. You guys really have made it, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Dude, thank you so much. Like I said before, I appreciate it very much, and we are very fortunate and very lucky to be doing it. You always wish you could rewind 10 years. I wish I had another 10 years to work towards it. You always feel like you're running out of time, but we are very lucky to be where we are. We don't take it for
tell your 10-year ago self that you'd be right here, he'd be like, holy shit, I can't believe, you know, John Bonamassa was social mediating about me. I don't even know what that is. I love it.
Yeah, maybe so.